Hey dudes!
Morning.
Welcome back to a new video. In this video, we're gonna talk about how expensive are our lives right now here in Latvia.
We actually made this video, he actually made this video about 6 years ago on expenses on Riga. So this will be an update, like a new relevant version of how things are in Latvia. And surprisingly, a couple things are changed since then.
So we chose all the similar categories where the expenses come from for everyone. We're gonna give you our average expenses for ourselves, how we live, and how an average Latvian would live.
And obviously these are just give and take, so it will depend on your lifestyle, your preferences, and your spending habits. Ours obviously are a little bit lower, so this is, if you're interested in saving any money, this might come useful.
Yeah, you could probably even go possibly cheaper than us, but usually people definitely go higher than us in the expenses. So let's just start one by one and explain what we wrote down.
First of our categories is food, and it's easy to spend on food and even overspend on food. So ever since we started living together, we've been tracking our expenses somewhat. Here in Latvia, we slipped a little bit. We stopped collecting our receipts and being really mental about it, but we still know our averages and how much we spend in the shops. So we will try to pull these together, and we'll just share the information, how much we've spent over the last month.
Yeah, at the same time, it's actually easy to save on food if you just do slight couple adjustments, make your own recipes, and you can make those food expenses a lot lower than they need to be. And yeah, maybe the first month we just didn't know what we were spending, we didn't know what anything costs, the right shops and everything. Now we're settled in and slowly we understand how much we would spend. And for ourselves, we're spending around 100 to 150 euros a month on food, but we could go to 100 or even less if we wanted to, still having great meals and not feel that we're, being scarce on food. But at the same time, if we want to just treat ourselves a little, get some extra snacks and stuff like that, then yeah, the budget will go to like 150.
Yeah, exactly. We've been thinking about how much we spend on food, and the prices that we came up with was based on how much we spend at Lidl. We've been to Lidl twice, and it was one time the last month, and for this month we went like last week. And so each time we spent about 60 euros, and we came out with full 2 carts of food and about 4 big bags of all the things that we needed. That's including all the rice, beans, pasta, everything that we usually eat. And obviously that's the cheapest way to purchase things here. If you go to Lidl by bulk, because they have cheaper prices, and if you go once a month, we're pretty confident that we would be able to make through with all the things that we bought from that 60 euros. And then for additional things, when we need fresh bread or whatever that we might need, we would add those 40 euros and we would be easily able to make it. But like you say, sometimes it's just the snacks that add up a lot faster than the food.
Yeah, one little thing to note is that we make lists every single time we go to shop, so we just don't just wander around and figure out some things. We always know what we're gonna buy. We know what we need for each meal that we're gonna buy, and that definitely saves us money. And on average, I think if you don't look what you're spending and if you just treat yourself a lot more than we do, I think on average people would spend around 300 euros on food. I think that would be an average estimate, but of course you can go a lot higher if you just don't look what you're spending and just buy everything you want.
And depending on which shop you also buy things. We're quite lucky here while we're living in Riga because we have the Lidl. I do understand that not everyone can access the shop, because if you live in a different city it might not be available, so you have to go to other stores and they are a bit more expensive.
Yeah, Latvia has a whole range from super cheap stores like Lidl, then we have Maxima, which is like the cheapest store before Lidl, and then obviously you can go to gourmet high-end shops and blow your money away. So it just depends where you're gonna shop. So the next thing on expenses in our list is transport, and we put it in 2 different categories. It's either you own a car or you use public transport.
We've been using public transport ever since I remember, and now since we have a car, our expenses went way up. So that's something to note. When you have a car, obviously it will be a lot more expensive.
Yeah, it's more expensive, yet obviously the comfort is great. Even the fact that we mentioned this in other videos, that the fact that we can now go to Lidl or other shops that have good prices and buy a lot at the same time, obviously kind of makes those expenses a bit lower, because we wouldn't be able to go to Lidl and get 5 full bags of food and then carry it at home.
Yeah, no way.
Yeah, the car expenses, for us, we only had a car for like about a month and a half, so we don't know exactly how people would spend money on car, fuel and stuff like that. But the little things that we know is we have to spend 13 euros on the just basic insurance, the one that you can't live without or drive without. And the gas prices are like quite high. It's 1.50 for a liter of fuel. Then we calculated that for a typical road trip around the country, we spend 50 euros just on fuel. But we do take our road trips quite far away in the country. So if you would take them quite not that far away, probably the cost would be lower.
So if you use your car just for driving in the city, probably you would be somewhere between 50 to 100 euros a month, which would be normal. But us, we don't have the rhythm yet, so we don't have the house yet. We didn't purchase the house. So once that's out of the way, we wouldn't have to make these long trips over the country. And then the costs will go way down, because we would go to shop maybe once or twice a month, and then if we wanted to go to nature or whatever the other experiences we would like, it would be a lot cheaper. We would not use the car and fuel as much.
Yeah, and obviously it depends if you're going to take the car to your work every single day and back. That probably adds up a lot.
Yeah, for going to work, we also added the expense of using the public transportation, and here in Riga at least you would look at about 50 euros a month, taking into consideration that you would go to work and back about 20 days a month.
For some people, it is a possibility to get the monthly card. If you just take one transport, like always the same route, then it will be just a little bit cheaper. But public transport here, I think we mentioned in another video, is not that cheap either.
Not the cheapest option we've ever seen.
Weirdly enough, sometimes it's cheaper if you're more than like one person, maybe 2 or 3 people, just to take a taxi, because it's going to be cheaper if you all pitch in.
Divide by head, it's going to be cheaper trip.
Yeah, than using a public transport, which is weird.
Then the obvious big next expense is your housing, and the rent prices here in Riga, they obviously range. So they can start as little as 150 per month up to whatever you're willing to pay, but the range really is 200 to 300 a month, and us, we are paying 200. So we found this apartment and we like living here. It's quiet, it's nice, it's spacious, and it's somewhat light, so we're pretty happy about it. So this is like if you're going to the lower end to save money, but if you want an average, maybe you don't get the deal like this, then the average price, I would say, it's 300 for rental apartment here.
Yeah, our location is also quite good and convenient. We're close to the city center, we're close to getting out of the city. We also have our own private parking for free, which is kind of a good thing if you are going to live in the city, because we have a lot of these big block houses that are quite high, so there's a lot of apartments and a lot of people there, and a lot of people have cars, so they're usually, if you go to one of those, visit some friends to those houses, it's quite hard to get parking, and that's not like personalized parking. It's just if you get a spot, then that's it.
And it's usually on the street, and if you go even to the city center, you might not find parking at all, or it usually will be paid thing. So if you live in a city center, you find a great deal for your apartment, but you own a car. We went through some of these options when we were looking for an apartment, and the car parking might easily make you €100 a month for a private parking where you have to pay for it. So we're very lucky not to pay that.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, one thing about the rent prices, when we say that you could find something for 150, sometimes even less, you're looking at not the best locations in the city. Even if the apartments, sometimes they're brand new, renovated for quite cheap prices. Like even for 200, you can get like a very beautiful, freshly modern apartment, but they're in really complicated location that's hard to get to. They're far away from the city. Public transport doesn't really go there. So you have to look at that. And also, if you are looking for apartments that are like 300 and up, that doesn't necessarily the location or the apartment is going to be good. So you have to go through all of them and see, like, inspect yourself what's the market and how much things should be valued, because people put randomest prices by themselves.
That's true. I wanted to add about the cheapest apartments. There's usually a catch, so look out for that catch. Sometimes these very new apartments are really small, which is not the problem, wouldn't be for us. However, they might be a dorm type of setting, so you might have to share your bathroom or your kitchen or anything like that. So be aware, not always these prices, the lower prices will be an apartment worthy though.
You will have to pay other bills like utility costs and electricity, water, and stuff like that. So for utility costs, they range quite a lot. So they can be from like €50 and up to 150. Also, they change between winter and summertime. Because of heating and stuff like that.
In winter, usually you pay a little bit more because you have to pay more to heat up your water and to heat up your apartment. Us, for example, we don't have a central heating, and so we pay everything on electricity. Since electricity skyrocketed in the few months when we came here, it's obviously now even half more than you would pay before, so we just have to account for the electricity prices. But our apartment comes with also a stove, so if we wanted to, we could burn firewood for heat, and that would be maybe a better option depending on how much the electricity will rise. And at the moment it isn't, because we don't have any free supply of wood, but if we did, that would be a good option.
Definitely. Plus it's a lot nicer to have like a little firewood burning in your room. It's a lot more cozier. Our utility costs are quite low. We're paying around €50 because that doesn't include the heating and the central heating and the central water that would be heated. So the regular water is included in the utility bills for us.
Cold water.
Yeah, cold water, exactly. But we have to heat it up ourselves by the boiler with electricity. So that's where our electricity bills would go up. Usually electricity bills are right now minimum €100 a month. If you would have central heating and central water, the bills would be lower, but your utility cost would be higher. So it's kind of utility cost, electricity, depends which one you have. So yeah, we have to heat our room with just the oil radiators and heat our own water. So that's where we spend a lot more on electricity, but we're trying to be as cost conscious as we possibly could. So right now we're spending about like, I don't know, bit over 100, but we're really like checking how much we spend. But if you don't check what you spend and you want to live super comfortably, water is heated all the time and the rooms are super heated, then the electricity costs will be a lot higher.
Double, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
We have, like you say, we have €100 per month, but it can go as high as 200, 150, even for the size of apartment of ours. So we have one oil heater, and then we're cooking on electricity, we have electric stove, and we have the water heating. And imagine if we had 2 rooms that we needed to heat, that would be double the price already, because heating with oil, it's not that cheap. And obviously if you keep your heater running day and night, then the prices will rise, obviously. So that's just something to keep in mind. Everyone is different, and we're just like really looking at our bills and see when we can turn things off. We usually do.
A little note about those big block houses. if you're looking to rent in one of those, pretty much all of them have central heating and central hot water. And the thing about central heating is that you don't really have control of how warm or cold you want your apartment to be. Also, you can't save if you decide to be cheaper, because it's the government who controls, or like the big companies that heat the apartments. They control how hot your apartments are gonna be, and if something goes wrong, then yeah, I've heard that like a whole big block apartment just loses heat and hot water for quite a while. So even though we have this possibility that we check how much heating we have when we heat up the water, and if we're not going to be at home for, let's say, a couple of days, we can turn everything off and our bills would be a lot smaller.
I guess I wanted to mention that since 5 years ago, or whenever you made the previous video, the salaries here are gotten better. So when we left Latvia, we were new starts for the job market, and we were earning like 3 euros an hour, which is ridiculous. And now you can earn 5-7 euros per hour, and if you're working full-time, the salary would be 1,000 to 1,500 would be the average salary, which was not like that before. And so that makes me feel a little bit more happy about our own country. Even for those entry jobs, like if we're comparing the same positions, now the salary might be twice as much, which is really good. It's still not the European level, but it makes me a little bit more happy about how things are developing here.
Yeah, even the minimum wage has increased a little bit. With all the price increases, it's not leveled out. We're still lower, but at least we can see some things are changing, and that's a good sign.
And also it's worth knowing that the rent prices are not gone as high up either. So you do make a little bit more money, as we have noticed, and you pay the same amount for rent, because when we left, the market was pretty much the same. You could also rent for 300 euros. So that's positive. So it's not really the increase of the money taken away by the expenses of living. So on this positive note, I guess we can go and spend this new earned money. And so what we would do for leisure time here in Latvia really depends. Us, we would probably just walk around and go get some snacks, and that would be our leisure time. But for those people going out and socializing, we also have you covered.
A little things that I mentioned before was, for example, going to restaurants, and some things that we personally like and we tried ourselves as well is pizza.
Yes, pizza's great.
Pizzas, as we noticed, would be from 10 to 15 euros depending on your toppings and your choices for a 30 centimeter pizza, which is, I think, the average size pizza. Yeah.
You can definitely share it with another person and then go for another lunch, but it's good.
I don't know if we eat a lot, but we definitely could eat the whole pizza each.
We ate 2 pizzas each for 30 centimeters when we were last out for pizzas, so
and
just getting a bit fat here. Obviously, as a great savers that we are, we use coupons for everything where possible, and also for pizzas. So if you go to Chili Pizza, you can take a coupon, and then your pizza will be a lot cheaper, and then you only pay $6.99 for pizza we last paid.
Yeah, each. So that's a lot better deal.
When you're happily fed, you can go to cinema, and here in Riga, at least, the cinema is 7 euros per movie, so quite average, I would say. For me, quite expensive, but for normal person, quite average. So if you want to go cinema, that's something to be aware of.
Another leisure time activity that we actually like to go in pretty much every country that we visit is zoo. I mean,
Zoo's great.
We don't like the fact that animals are caged, but we also want to see those animals. And ticket prices are 10 euros per person, adult. And if you have a kid, or you're a kid,
or a student,
yes, then you would get it for 5 euros. And the last thing that we wanted to mention, because we made an amazing footage, was that we went to a little tea house here in Riga.
Yeah, tea house was great. It was the most expensive tea I've ever had. It was 5 euros a cup, but it was totally worth it. It was the tea I've never had, and for your tea, it was the taste I've never had in my life in a cup. So that on itself, it was pretty decently spent €5 for me.
Definitely. So they give you these pots like this one that we also have now.
We got inspired from that tea house. We went out and got ourselves a teapot.
Yeah, so you get this kind of teapot for the $5. You can get like, I don't know, 3 little cups of tea.
But they give you like the tiniest cup so that you can like pretend that you have more.
Definitely. You could probably get one of this one or something like that. Atmosphere is really nice, and especially in winter, you look outside the window and snow is falling.
Definitely recommend you. So these were just some of our recommendations for your leisure time. Obviously there's more. This was just our personal preference, and these were just some that we were looking into.
This kind of covers our costs for approximately a month living in Latvia. Right now,
probably it goes somewhere between 500 to 700 euros, but depending on what we spend the money that month on, it can go as little as just your rent and your food, but once you start adding things, it will add things up.
All right, so should this be the end of our video?
I think this is the end of the video.
So if you guys enjoyed this one, you could leave a like. If you want to follow our journey and watch more videos, you could subscribe. That would be great. And we'll see you in the next video.
Bye.
Bye.